knows how to celebrate. If you're headed to Vegas for your birthday, plan ahead to get all the birthday freebies the city has to offer. Just by showing your ID, you could get free cash play, scratch cards, drinks, and food at various venues on the Strip. Now, go get lucky. See you in Las Vegas. Let's get lucky.
It should be illegal for Scottie Scheffler to play on the PGA Tour. This guy can't be stopped. Another victory at the BMW Championship. He has a chip on the 17th, which will go down in the history books. 82 feet, landed 60 feet short, and then rolled the rest of the way. Super exciting win again for Scheffler, who is not only the best golfer in the world, he's becoming one of the best golfers of all time.
Newswire. Only on SportsGrid.
Passing offense is him, Devonta Smith, Dallas Goedert. They have Jahan Dotson. They just recently traded for John Mechie from the Houston Texans. And obviously, yes, Saquon is there, but a lot of people are expecting the Eagles to have an increase in their passing rate this year. They won't rely as heavily on Saquon, and it should just mean more volume overall. Obviously, Brown was fantastic, and he did so in not playing a full season last year.
Game time decisions. Only on SportsGrid.
The Giants are probably going to open up 1-5 on the season. So then you start to say the fans are getting angry. They just want to see Dart. The ownership's like, hey, you know what? Maybe we'd make the right move with Russ here. But then you have self-preservation mode with the general manager and the head coach, where it almost seems like it's inevitable. Midway through the season, it's going to have to be Jackson Dart. Otherwise, what are we doing, Giants?
The Early Line. Only on SportsGrid.
It's launch day for ESPN's new flagship streaming service, plus the PFL's co-founder tells us how Paramount's big UFC deal is also good news for them. Hi, everyone, and welcome to Front Office Sports Today from FOS Studios in New York City. I'm Baker Machado.
And I'm Renee Washington, and thank you guys so much for joining us each and every weekday as we chat the biggest stories in the business and culture of sports. We're also talking Paige Buckets, her amazing rookie run later, but first let's dive into the shoot-around.
Yeah, and let's start in the NFL, Renee, as the Cowboys head coach Brian Schottenheimer told reporters that he does expect star rusher Micah Parsons to play in the team's September 4th opener against the Eagles. This despite no clear progress on a new contract. That all according to NFL Network's Tom Pelissero. Now, Parsons has not participated in a training camp practice this week, but has been part of walkthroughs and team meetings. That as he seeks to become the highest paid non-quarterback in the league, Renee.
Yeah, and I know the Cowboys have been dragged a lot by current and former players like CeeDee Lamb, Des Bryant, even entertainers like Denzel Washington and Nicki Minaj, and Lou Riddick actually mentioned on First Take this entire process is just very tone deaf and ridiculous are the words that he used, because we also hear Jerry Jones on the Netflix documentary saying how he enjoys the pain when people are asking him why he doesn't have a buffer, a GM. He claims he likes to be the one that gets all the pain of all this controversy and criticism. But the reality is they haven't had conversations with Micah Parsons, and it has been a really bad look for the Cowboys. So my thought as a very biased Eagles fan, get the deal done, sign Micah Parsons, and be ready to lose week 1 to the Eagles at the Lake.
And by the way, with CeeDee Lamb, you mentioned his deal came really at the 11th hour,
Yes.
so maybe that might happen here with Micah Parsons as well. Well, it was a big opening weekend for the Premier League here in the U.S., as last Sunday's match between Manchester United and Arsenal was seen by 2.3 million viewers across NBC, Telemundo, and Peacock, making it the most watched opening weekend match on record in the U.S., as well as the second most watched Premier League match in the U.S. ever, Renee.
Yeah, that Arsenal win over Manchester United, that 1-0 win, drew such a large crowd for it to be the second most watched ever, with that 2.1 million viewers that it passed that number. But also this week, across the 6 matches, they did a tremendous job of kickstarting the season, especially last year after a 7% dip in Premier League average viewership to be able to continue to rise. 2023 was historic, and they started this year off with a historic stretch as well. So massive kickoff for the start of this season.
Well, here's a conference realignment story you might not have had on your bingo card. The newly looked Pac-12 is set to add college baseball powerhouse Dallas Baptist as a baseball-only member next year. This all according to The Athletic. Now, the school will begin play as a conference member in spring 2027. Dallas Baptist is currently in Conference USA and has played in 11 consecutive NCAA tournaments, and they're just one of 5 active programs to do so. So a huge coup for the Pac-12.
Yeah, this is a massive baseball program that's reached the tournament 13 of the last 14 times since becoming a Division I program back in 2004. As you mentioned, huge baseball program that's up there with teams like LSU, but also for the Pac-12 as they're looking to add teams across all sports. They're looking to add more. They've already done a tremendous job in other sports like football, and now to add someone in baseball after having just 2 teams last season is moving in the right direction for the revival of the conference.
Plus, they'll join Oregon State, who's in the top 10, I think, in baseball in the rankings right now. So Pac-12 looking pretty good in baseball.
Oh, yeah.
Well, Caitlin Clark has not played for the Fever since suffering a groin injury back in July, but that's apparently not the only injury she's dealing with. This is she reportedly tweaked her ankle, causing a mild bone bruise during a workout earlier this month in Phoenix. Now, one of the highest profile players hasn't been on the court so far this year. The WNBA, though, is still thriving from performances from stars like Paige Beckers, who set a WNBA single-game rookie scoring record with 44 points against the Sparks. That is, the league is also setting attendance records as well. So let's take a look at this in our main event. All right, let's bring in FOS reporter Colin Salau. So, Colin, how important is it for the WNBA to have performances like Paige Beckers, given the fact that Caitlin Clark is out right now?
Yeah, I think it's extremely important just to show that there are other stars in the league, right? And whether Caitlin Clark is playing or not, we're seeing even Nafisa Collier's out right now, but we're seeing Asia Wilson rising up as taking kind of control of potentially this MVP race. But I think it really is showing that, hey, there are other stars, and the more eyeballs there are on the league with or without Caitlin Clark or through Caitlin Clark, and you see these other athletes rising up, then people will start being fans of other teams. I think looking at the Fever themselves, they have a huge fan base right now, even with Caitlin Clark gone, who are caring about Aaliyah Boston, caring about Kelsey Mitchell. And I think that's partly the effect of Caitlin Clark that's like going on to players like Paige Beckers.
And the reality is, Colin, ever since Caitlin Clark stepped foot in the WNBA, there has brought out an audience, a group of fans that are racist, that are sexist, that are homophobic, that are discriminatory. They've made it sometimes a Caitlin Clark versus the WNBA, or even a black versus white claims that we've seen through this. How much with a player like Paige Beckers' 44-point performance last night, historic rookie performance, how important is it when you have a player like Paige, who is loved by so many people? I don't think anybody has a bad thing to say about Paige as a top 5 scorer, and only a rookie helped to really reduce the divide that we're seeing in the WNBA created by these discriminatory claims.
It's interesting because I think it's very helpful, especially because of the fact that when you see it, the players themselves, they are very close to Paige. They've had relationships with Paige growing up. But ultimately, like Caitlin Clark, she's never really said anything necessarily to spark these hatred comments, these racist comments, these all these different types of hate that's been spewing about the WNBA. It's just that kind of the fans and potentially some media are pushing this narrative that's making it a racial battle between Caitlin Clark and Angel Reese, Caitlin Clark and all the other athletes. Like, for example, Diana Taurasi's comments at the start of last year. You see it. She is so close to Caitlin Clark right now. Caitlin Clark and Diana Taurasi have a great relationship, but people still think that, veterans don't like Caitlin Clark. So sometimes it might be a media thing. And I am kind of worried that if Paige Beckers continues to rise up, yes, there's a positive in having a foil, having another rival for a person like Caitlin Clark, but does that end up pushing something, potentially hatred towards Paige Beckers? We don't know. Hopefully it doesn't happen.
Paige Beckers right now 5th in the league in scoring. Colin, this also comes on the heels of great attendance numbers the WNBA is getting. Basically, the highest numbers they've had since 2002, the league averaging over 11,000 fans per game. How much of that is sort of this great sort of nugget for the WNBA, given that Caitlin Clark has not been on the court?
Yeah, I think it's really great in a sense of the Fever are still driving the attendance. If you look at road games, Fever games are higher than any other team, largely because a lot of Fever games are being moved to bigger arenas. But you can tell that locally fans care about their teams. Look at the Golden State Valkyries selling out every single game. And that's not just Fever games, that's every single game. But even here in Chicago, where the team is not performing well, but I go to the games and fans are coming out. Fans are still supporting. Whether or not Angel Reese even plays, they're still coming out and supporting. So there's clearly like people wanting to go into this league. You have to give credit to Caitlin Clark and Angel Reese potentially and all that rookie class for pushing fans. But there is clear growth that's happening as a kind of a tailwind from that.
And Colin, as we know, Caitlin Clark is still out dealing with the groin injury that she suffered back in July. Also hurt her ankle while rehabbing that groin. And injury is never good. I want to make that clear. I'm not saying I like or I support the fact she's injured. I'm sad to see she's still out on the court. But bigger picture for the WNBA with these historic moments, these historic attendance records, especially off the heels of last year's highs in terms of viewership and attendance, how much is this beneficial long-term for the WNBA to prove, yes, Caitlin Clark is the face of the league, but the league is still strong in supportership across the teams?
I think it's important, but at the same time, I'll argue that if Caitlin Clark was there, you would see that push still happening with her, right? The way I'll put it is, if you look at the NCAA during her last run, those games with Paige Beckers, against Paige Beckers, I think 14 million for that game, UConn, Iowa. I think 9 million for the game before that. That wasn't even against, I forget which team, but there was just people cared about Caitlin Clark, and then the fans will follow from there. I still believe that if she was there, the games would be much higher, but it is cool to see that, like, hey, people are paying attention regardless of whether she's playing. I think we all just know, and Sue Bird's talked about it, like, when she's there, people are going to pay attention, and, everyone else will feel that effect later on.
Yeah, we got less than 1 month left of the season. A lot of amazing storylines still yet to come. Colin Salau, thank you so much for your insights. And coming up next, everyone, ahead of their big final event in Miami, we're talking to the PFL co-founder and co-owner about the future of the league and if Jake Paul will finally fight in that league. That's next.
The sharpest football contest show in the land, the Las Vegas Football Contest Show, focuses on Circus Sports Million, Circus Survivor, and the Westgate Super Contest, handicapping the games and releasing our contest picks every week of the season. With two former Super Contest winners, Brady Cannon and James Salinas, a former NFL player, Mike Pritchard, and over $1 million in contest prize money won combined, the Las Vegas Football Contest Show will have you prepared this season like none other.
It doesn't matter that they're early in the game, late in the game, they're trailing, they're leading. It doesn't matter garbage time. CeeDee Lamb is the guy. And we saw that even after Dak got hurt last year and Cooper Rush was under center, targets were going to CeeDee Lamb. And when you can get 9, 10, 12, 15 targets on a game-by-game basis, he's going to rack up fantasy points every single week. Frankly, he underperformed last year.
Game time decisions, only on SportsGrid.
Answer is this. 12-team, 3 wide receiver, you take Jamar Chase. In a 10-team league, though, where you have only 2 wide receivers to start, it's an interesting supply and demand situation with a roster like that. That is where the Bijan number 1 overall maybe comes into play, because you could take Bijan and then turn around. You're still getting 2 number 1 wide receivers in a 10-team league draft.
Fantasy sports today, only on SportsGrid.
In extras, knocked out the Reds 6-5. This team doesn't lose. And the only thing I want to say, Tom, is I just hope they can continue this. Now, what does that mean? 40 games in a row? Of course we know it's not going to be the case. They are peaking right now. We've seen so many times. Baseball's a long season. Boy, if the Brewers are playing this baseball on September the 28th, watch out. But they are sensational right now.
Pro baseball today, only on SportsGrid.
Welcome back, everyone, to Front Office Sports Today with Renee Washington and Baker Machado. Well, the Professional Fighters League heads to Florida on August the 21st. That in the final stop of their PFL World Tournament. This is where some elite fighters are going to compete for their share of over $20 million in prize money. So to talk that and the league and so much more, let's bring in Don Davis, the PFL co-founder, chairman, and co-owner. Don, good to have you here. Let's start off with this big event. What can we expect in the final?
Well, as you know, the PFL World Tournament is single elimination. March Madness meets MMA. And this is the final 3 championships. We have 8 weight classes, therefore 8 championship final bouts. The final 3 go down Thursday, 9 p.m., ESPN main channel. So fighters get to earn it. You win 3 times, you win 3 times in a row, you win the belt, $500,000, and bragging rights for a full year. So it is going to be fantastic. Middleweights, light heavyweights, and heavyweights tomorrow, Thursday, ESPN main.
Love that. And this also comes at an exciting time with the announcement of PFL Dubai adding 3 new fights. But I do also want to talk about Tuesday as heavyweight fighter Francis Ngannou opened up criticizing PFL Africa in terms of the promotions, the card, and even mentioned you as well. When you have such a big name like that in Francis, how do you manage these fighters and handle things like this when they do come up?
Yeah, you have to focus on the signal, not the noise. PFL Africa has been a real success and a source of overwhelming pride, not just for PFL, but in the MMA community. This year, 2025, has been the best year of fighting inside the cage for PFL. First of all, in the World Tournament, astounding number of fights this year, overwhelming, whether you read Reddit, X, or ask fans who watch on TV. Our best year of fighting ever. From Thad Jean, a real-world Rocky story winning, to Liz Carmouche, the first woman in MMA at age 40, winning her first title. PFL Africa, we staged the first major MMA on the continent. And we're not hitting and running. We're staying 4 events every year, their own league, not one event, but their own league. All African fighters, all held in the region. Cape Town, sold out. Johannesburg, sold out. We're going to end with the championship in Benin, sold out. So this is so the next Francis Ngannou doesn't have to leave the continent to start his MMA career. Huge sense of accomplishment. And as you said, the last one, a top 5 fight in all of MMA this year, Nurmagomedov, Hughes, Dubai, our PFL Europe type of championship and events. So to me, you have to focus on the signal, not the noise. Is PFL creating opportunities for fighters? Is PFL putting on the very best product? Yes and yes.
Don, some of the rival fighter leagues out there, from UFC getting a big deal with CBS and Paramount Plus to the WWE increasing their footprint as well when it comes to a lot of their distribution partners as well. I'm curious, do you feel like those deals, do they help you guys at PFL? And do you feel like, one, what's your thoughts on the UFC Paramount deal, but also do you feel like it helps you guys when it comes to your future rights deals?
The UFC Skydance Paramount deal was fantastic for them and fantastic for MMA overall. Win, win, win. It will create more opportunities for PFL, which creates more opportunities for MMA fighters. I said first on your show 7 months ago, it would be $1 billion a year. People were skeptical. Some even laughed when I declared this first. It was $1.1 billion a year, and it didn't even include all the UFC content. So it's about 20% more than I predicted, about 40% more than most people predicted. Why is that? MMA is fully mainstream, and MMA should be part of any serious sports portfolio of media companies. You have to rewind the clock to 7 years ago when UFC was acquired by ESPN media rights. There was only one bidder for the UFC media rights 7 years ago, ESPN. One bidder. This time, 5 bidders. So MMA is now mainstream. MMA should be part of every sports portfolio. That clearly benefits PFL when we come up for our media rights renewal next year, because PFL is a substitute product. Unlike other athletes, we have 1/3 of the top athletes in PFL. UFC has 2/3. So this is not like the big 4 sports leagues where the NFL controls all the talent, the NBA controls all the talent, and other leagues have 0. We have 1/3, UFC has 2/3. So it's like soccer, where the Premier League has a lot, but League One, Serie A, Bundesliga has a lot of top athlete talent. So PFL, substitute product. We don't have a substitute brand yet. We're new. We're 6 years old. They're 35 years old. So great for UFC, great for MMA, but the media rights deal, great for PFL next year.
As you mentioned, PFL is doing a tremendous job growing, attracting the biggest stars, expanding. And I'm curious, in this final minute that we have with you, do you perceive and see any more expansion for the PFL, but also continuing to attract big stars? I know Jake Paul's name's been thrown out there with that deal from a few years ago. People are wondering, will he ever fight in PFL? But also expansion and more big stars. What can we expect, Don?
Expansion, yes. Stars, yes. And let me focus on both. It is all going to be around growing our own talent and growing international. Dakota Ditcheva is the biggest women's star in the world right now. She's number 3 ranked. We signed her when she was a number 48 ranked girl from Manchester. She became the PFL Europe champ, then the PFL world champ. Now she's the darling of MMA. She just re-signed with us for another 3 years. So we will continue to identify, develop, and grow our own stars, just like Dakota or Paul Hughes or Nurmagomedov. So it's not about acquiring the other guys, it's about developing our own. Second point, it's all global. Of the 650 million MMA fans in the world, 550 million are not here in the US. PFL is super serving them. PFL Europe, PFL Mideast, PFL Africa, PFL Pacific, and coming, PFL LATAM, and PFL Asia. We're going where the fans are, where the money is, and where they're underserved and undermonetized by UFC. So you'll look for us to be the most global MMA company in the world.
Don, very quickly, will we actually see Jake Paul fight for you guys for PFL?
We'd love to. Jake is so successful in boxing, it's delayed his MMA career. His success has delayed his move to the PFL cage. My hope he does it, and my hope he does it next year.
All right, Don Davis, a lot of stuff there, co-founder, chairman, and co-owner of the Professional Fighters League. Don, thank you so very much. Of course, the Professional Fighters League World Tournament Final going to be happening at Seminole Hard Rock Hotel and Casino in Hollywood, Florida on August the 21st. The main event going to be between Fabian Edwards and Dalton Rasta. And by the way, Sway Lee going to be performing during this as well. Yes,
Ooh,
what a big get for them.
Big event.
Yes, indeed. All right, guys, don't go anywhere. We have a whole lot more of Front Office Sports Today headed your way right after this very quick break.
Playing online blackjack and want to try upping your odds? Well, here's a tip. Cheat cards tell you statistics for whether you hit or stand on every move. If you're into stats, this could be your ticket to winning. And it is totally legal. Now, go get lucky. See you in Las Vegas. Let's get lucky.
The Bengals are listening to trade offers for perennial Pro Bowler Trey Hendrickson per me and Tom Pelissero. It's unclear if the NFL sack leader will be playing elsewhere in 2025. Any trade will be a real challenge, but time will tell. You know what's not a real challenge? In the offseason, when he doesn't want to be here and you're trying to make a trade for him. Most people that say, okay, I have to sell a house or sell a car, let me put it out on the market, and I'll take the best deal that's available.
The Early Line, only on SportsGrid. This is the moment every fan waits for. The countdown's over. The road to kickoff has begun.
Play is here to stay. I'm not going to name names.
From win totals to player props, from division races to MVP debates, we've got eyes on every camp and data feeding 24/7, breaking down every angle across the league. Every pick, every edge, every line that matters. SportsGrid. Your road to kickoff starts now.
They're saying that he might be back for the start of the playoffs, but their playoff spot isn't secure with the Mariners bearing down on them and the wild card completely in flux. So this is like borderline red alert because the pitching staff has not been good. We have not seen good stuff from Framber Valdez. So now that the back end of the bullpen is not good, I don't know what to make.
Pro Baseball Today, only on SportsGrid.
And welcome back everyone to Front Office Sports Today with Renee Washington and Baker Machado. Well, it's launch day for ESPN's new streaming app. Plus, NBC is looking to own Sunday nights year-round. So for that and so many other big media headlines, let's bring in Front Office Sports reporter Mike McCarthy. He's also author of the Tuned In newsletter, which you can subscribe to on frontofficesports.com. Mike, let's start with ESPN's flagship. Obviously, it's available now for all of us to use and consume. I played with a little bit of it this morning. But what's sort of been the initial response so far from ESPN about the launch?
Well, the response has been great, and ESPN is throwing everything but the kitchen sink at this thing. You know, you had Jimmy Pitaro, the chairman, who was ringing the bell on Wall Street to open the trading this morning. And if you were on the E train this morning coming in from Queens, you heard the dulcet tones of Stephen A. Smith touting this new direct-to-consumer platform. They actually did a whole ESPN wrap of the E-Train. So I think the things that have really stuck out to me, Baker, that I'm hearing about, people like the multi-screens. They like being able to watch 3 or 4 games at a time. People love the little tab. We can keep track of your bets. And people love the tab for fantasy football. And here's something that nobody isn't talking about, which I thought was interesting. They're actually going to invite you to shop while you're on this thing. You can actually be watching a game and click a button and go buy somebody's jersey. So that's another little doodad that I really like.
And Mike, people also love Rich Eisen. We saw his return back to SportsCenter after 20 years, brought record-setting numbers. We also have seen WWE opt out of their deal with Peacock. They're moving to ESPN 6 months earlier. So how much do these massive moves happen as a result of ESPN's launch today?
Well, it was so funny. You know, they brought back Rich on Monday night, and it seemed like a one-off and, you know, just a kind of a feel-good nostalgic play. Exploded. You know what I mean? It was like the biggest number they've seen in a long time. Everybody loved it. They were talking about it at the press conference the other day. So FOS has reported that they're going to continue it. Rich is going to be making more SportsCenter appearances. He's going to be going up to Bristol. He's going to be here. So look for more Rich Eisen SportsCenters in the future. And I'll tell you, I think it would be a great idea to have an oldies version of SportsCenter. People didn't just react to seeing Rich. They loved the old music. They loved the old graphics. They loved the more personal, intimate setting of the sets. So why not try an oldies version of SportsCenter? I think it would be great.
I totally agree. I love when they do those throwbacks. And Eisen's show is amazing because they use the original open for SportsCenter that he used to have with him and the late Stuart Scott, which was
the horns,
awesome.
The music.
Oh, yeah.
I love it.
It brought back all the feelings.
Oh, yes. I was all about this. Speaking of things I'm also all about, Mike, you know, there's been reports about Major League Baseball negotiating their television rights. And apparently the news story out there is NBC is looking to get the Sunday night baseball rights. And you had this great column on frontofficesports.com about how NBC might be owning Sundays as a result of this. Explain why.
That's right. They're gunning for the biggest power play Baker here since The Sopranos. Basically, they're trying to set up a schedule where they will own primetime Sunday nights, which as we all know is the biggest, most popular viewing night of the week. Sunday night football, Sunday night basketball, Sunday night baseball. Year-long programming. I think it's a brilliant strategy by NBC if they could pull it off. And I hear they're close because all these leagues have taken a look at the success they've had with Sunday Night Football. Sunday Night Football has been the #1 show in prime time for 14 years. That's a generation. And to put that in perspective, that's double All in the Family or American Idol with some of the former #1 shows. So if they could pull it off, they're going to have a really powerful programming slate, and that's really going to attract the advertisers.
Yeah, all these networks looking to add to their rosters, ESPN, NBC, Amazon adding John Wall. So it seems like it's time to try to bolster up those strategies.
Absolutely. Mike McCarthy, good stuff as always. Of course, you can sign up for Mike's Tuned In newsletter on frontofficesports.com. Mike, thank you so much. And let's see what's bubbling over at the FOS water cooler. Well, Renee, here's one way to coach a game. After receiving a red card and sent off at halftime to sit in the stands in Inter Miami's win during the Leagues Cup this week, head coach Javier Mascherano used a cell phone to communicate with his assistant coaches and was seen shouting instructions behind the Miami bench. And here's a surprise in all of this. When contacted by The Athletic, a Leagues Cup spokesperson said that Mascherano was in a designated space where cell phone communication totally okay. So is this going to be a new trend now?
Well, it's There's a lot here because this quarterfinal game was insane. I mean, you already had Lionel Messi sidelined.
Yeah.
He re-injured his hamstring. You already had the penalty kick that happened in the first half for Inter Miami. And then the red card came as a result of Mascherano arguing about stoppage time. So before we even got to halftime, chaos. But when you look at this compared to other leagues, when a coach gets ejected in the NBA or any other sport, they're out of the arena. They're out of the stadium. They're gone. There's no coming back. Soccer's a little bit unique. And so for Javier Mascherano to have a chance to be sitting in the stands on the phones with his assistant coach Pagano is definitely different, and I could see it happening more, but coaches typically sit in the stands when they're given a red card for soccer. They just don't call.
They're not on their cell phones.
They're
like,
not calling. They're not calling their assistant. So I don't know if this will become a norm, but I think what needs to be a norm is to eliminate it.
Guys, the college football season is kicking off this weekend, so we're getting you prepared on tomorrow's show. Thanks so much for watching. We'll see you later.